Hello, welcome back to Blender Live Noding. In this episode, I'm going to use both Animation Nodes and Sverchok and kind of doing like a bit of a comparison in terms of how they two can handle like multiple objects instancing in a more selective way. It's actually kind of similar to if you're like a bunch of objects and you kind of instance it using Blender particles. So perhaps I should also touch on that area. So with Blender, if you have like a bunch of objects and you want to kind of instance it over like different particles, like a particle is just a particle, it's just like a point in space. So I just made like a particle system there. So they're just a bunch of particles, and those particles can use instance of objects, whether you are using the particle instancer. Kind of like if you select an object and then you use a particle instance and select these particles, and you get all those instances. Or you can also just select the particles emitter and then go to under instance particles, and instead of this hello, you want to have perhaps like objects, and so you select the objects, whether it's a cube or a torus or icosphere. You can instance objects that way, and that's using Blender particle system. And you can also use group. A group is actually very powerful. If you have like a bunch of objects, Control G, you kind of group it, and once you group it, you can select group objects here and select group, and you get this this ability to have like random objects being scattered, and you can also randomize the size. And this is really cool. I found really cool. But you also need to work with Blender particle system, which can be daunting, or because you don't always want to use particles all the time. And Blender actually have a way to do that simply by using duplicate. So duplicate is also something that's really cool. So I'll delete the particles, and then if I'm using this dupli and using this group duplications, we can sort of make duplications based on like the vert or things like that if we are parenting it. But anyway, that's a whole like a whole lot. That's how Blender do it internally. If we are using nodes add-on like Sverchok or animation nodes, we kind of being able to control that in a way that's particle maybe not so visual, like not so clear. So if I'm gonna use animation nodes for now very quickly, and I will create distribute matrices very quickly. So distribute matrices, and then if we are using the viewer 3D, you can see what this thing actually does. So you can have transform basically. Let me actually turn off always and just have these three. And this is the default is set to linear, and you can have like transform being generated on the fly, whether it's linear or you pick a circle, or based on vertices, and based on grid as well. That's actually the one that's really my favorite. So it's kind of making like a voxel grid in 3D. And using these distribute matrices, you can actually distribute these objects, these 4 objects. So I'm going to show you how in animation nodes. The way I think of it is like whenever we have a bunch of objects that we want to instance, we always want to use the objects from group first of all, and select our group. And this group objects, if you check it out using viewer, you will see there are 4 objects. So I like this way that you can see what's going on with what you are working on using the viewer nodes. Viewer nodes is very handy. Animation nodes and Sverchok have a way to do this. So viewer, you can see there's a torus, cone, icosphere, and cube. So this is a bunch of objects, and if you want to kind of distribute it, let me save this instant if you want to distribute it on this transform, you can do it very easily. Just use matrix output. So object matrix output, and all you need to do is actually, if you think that, okay, these objects and then this matrix, it will of course apply the matrices into these 4 objects, but that's not what you want, right? In this case, you want to use instancing, so we need to create object instancer. So with object instancer, we can specify, okay, we want to, how many how many new objects instance that we want to generate. First of all, it's based on these matrices, right? So the matrices plug into the instance, so that's gonna give the length. The length is like the total number of the matrices. So now that we have that amount of instance being generated, we can actually put this into that guy. You can see the instance is being generated and placed on the transform matrix there. But that's not enough, because we need the mesh data. And to get the mesh data, we need to have copy object data. This is where we pipe in our group objects and pipe in the empty instance object data. And this guy actually can go to this guy now. So this is how I would set it up. So you have a bunch of objects, and you copy the object data into instance objects, and then this is what you get. And you might notice some kind of a pattern already. So let me actually move our master objects to the side. So these are 4 objects that we are instancing into this guy right here. Let's set it to 3 by 3 by 3, simplified. So we have 27 objects, and it's based on these 4 objects. They are instanced into these matrices. Whether you set it to grid or circle, you know, it will just work basically. So circle, grid, I think I like it just grid for now. So with the grid, let's say we have grid that looks like this, and then we can actually specify which objects we want. And the way to do that is to use a get list element. So this actually will do the job for us. So if we have a bunch of lists of objects, and we kind of want to selectively select our objects, we can do that very easily. So that's the first index 0 of the objects, which is our torus. Next one, our cone, icosphere, and our box. So that's how actually you can selectively select the objects. And if you are using like a random number for the index, you can also do that. Turn on this guy. Now it's become indices. Now you can actually specify. Also, I turn on this guy and specify the indices. Let's say we just want probably two objects, just the cone and then the torus. We can do it this way. So, and randomize the seed. You can specify maybe just this guy and this guy, the icosphere and then the cone. That's also possible. So you can specify it based on this indices number, and as long everything matches, like the total number, you should be fine with it. It will work. And let's select the group, put it to the side. Sometimes I actually just hide these objects. So now we can have variations of objects based on the 4 group objects that we already selectively created. So that's how you do it using animation nodes. And how about doing it using Sverchok? Now Sverchok is probably like a stepchild in this case. but I use Sverchok a lot, and I really like Sverchok because we are doing it. Sometimes I feel it's more dynamic, and see, with animation nodes, everything is gonna be like instance objects, and they're like each one of them is separate objects. With Sverchok, you can actually put these 4 objects as a single object. I'll show you. So objects in, this is how you do it inside Sverchok. You can get selection by group, same like animation nodes, get selections. Now we have 4 objects inside Sverchok, and you can use viewer draw. I always do it this way. So viewer draw, and now you are playing with the vertices and the polygon of these 4 objects. Remember, we have 4 objects, so if we want to kind of spread them apart, we can use 4 random vector, plug into the matrices, which is the transform, and we can kind of spread them. We are dealing with the actual data of the objects. Keep that in mind. That's actually very powerful and very interesting. And if you want to have like more, you can use the vector p, and here you can specify some kind of volume. 4 by 4 by 4, say that's 64 objects. Seems to be like it's already starting to slow down, right? Because Sverchok is actually using the actual data instead of the instance, so it's gonna be heavier on Blender as well. So you keep that in mind. There's many ways to actually get around this. So now you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. The index, the last objects actually being duplicated for the rest. And usually, if we have like we have 27 matrix transform here, but we have 4 objects. How do we kind of duplicate it and stuff? We can actually use a list item. So if we have 4 data coming in, we should be able to select which one we want to use for duplications. Okay, let me have a think how we do it. So list item is gonna be for the vertices data and the polygon data, and this goes in there, this goes in there. I think level should be level 1. There you go. We have the cone, and if we want to selectively select the objects, I'll show you that we can do that as well. So you can do it this way: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 doesn't work because there is no data, because we only have 4 objects. But now if we want to randomize this, we can use random number generator, and let's say 27, because we have 27 objects here, 27 transform, and we need 27 data. So if we are using the stethoscope, you can see the data. Okay, we actually need the value between 0 and 4, I believe, or 0 and 3. So 0, 3, this is like a random 27 random value, and this gonna go inside this item thing. And Blender node is very cool. If you have like kind of like a branching like this, if it's for the same value, we can hold shift and then do it like that. Now we can just pipe in this new data. So now we have like a 27 random value controlling all this data coming in and coming out, and in here as a preview. If we bake it out, it's gonna be 27 objects based on this 4 group objects. There's gonna be like a normal 27 objects, but you can also mesh join it if you like. By the way, with all these noodle, like all these nodes, you can actually go to user preferences, and then with the themes and node editor, you can adjust the node curving. So it's instead of too curvy or less curvy, you can reduce it to 0. Now they are just like a straight lines. So Okay, so we have a way to randomize objects based on original 4 elements here. And if you really want to kind of combine them together, the bmesh, viewer bmesh actually allow you to do that very easily. So this is the matrices, right? And this is the data, vertices and the polygon data. We can turn off the viewer now. Now this guy is now real objects. And if we turn on merge, they're gonna be merged into a single object. That's actually very powerful as well. If you don't want them to be merged, you can keep it separate. You can also group them. If they are grouped as a single group, it can be very handy because you can bring it into animation nodes and then use it as instance objects. So that's very powerful, and I'm gonna use this in the next live noding, perhaps, kind of demonstrate why we want to understand both how animation nodes do it and how Sverchok do it for in terms of instancing. So yeah, I think that's pretty clear. So that's this is SV instancing, and this is animation nodes instancing. They both are really powerful, and we have both the tool, and I think this is like very advantageous for Blender artists. And okay, hopefully you find this useful. Let me know what you think. If you have any question or feedbacks you want to add, let me know. And thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.